So this video will be perhaps a little convoluted, but it's followable. There is in sort of the New Age movement, which I don't associate myself with, but I want to speak on a topic that maybe connects with that, but angle it from more of a scientific perspective and philosophical perspective. So, in particular, there's this notion of densities. Now, roughly, the idea is that we're in third density, and maybe there's a movement to a fourth density. And in this movement, they say that third density is the lowest in which intelligent creatures can evolve, can be. Now, I've spoken about something similar in other videos, but I want to address the notion that third density actually connects to third person awareness, it's not, for example, an animal. They live their life in 3 dimensions, but I think they're only experiencing 2. And what I mean by that is that they can react to, like, that sounds absurd from one sort of perspective, because obviously they're seeing things 3-dimensionally. They have the eyes and the ability to do that. But I think what I mean by it is that looked at from one way, because they don't have the capabilities to rationally cognize their own experience, I think how it works is that their perceptual awareness is actually only grafted into their mind sort of 2-dimensionally. I'm going to hold off on that, maybe circle around a little later. This might be a long video. I was reading in Integral Ecology, in the footnotes, this book by Sean Hargens and Michael Zimmerman. In the back of the footnotes, there's this idea that subjectivity, which means kind of first-person awareness, experience in the present, thoughts, feelings, emotions, felt phenomenologically, so in your interior experience, can be associated with sort of present continuous in the tense. So it's a sense of, in English we use the words like running, dancing, singing, etc. And now, why you might say that subjectivity connects to that is that if you're sort of purely in subject, you're experiencing a fluidity of movement through time. This has to be experienced by a person or by a being that is capable of, I would argue, objectifying their reality. But they're experiencing it from a first-person perspective. So what I mean by that is that they have to at least have the capability of being a self-aware individual to actually have the experience of, I am doing this presently. I am acting, I'm singing, I'm dancing, etc. if you're familiar with spiral dynamics, I've been considering that red consciousness. When the I asserts itself in a stable sense, it's self-aware in a fluid context, but it's impulsive in that sense. With amber in spiral dynamics, or blue, there is this more grouping together of individuals. The great myths of the world were built, and shared meaning is kind of commonplace, but it's all under a concrete vision of reality. What is not questioned by anybody. You'll get burned at the stake or killed often in these cultures if you question what the true myth is, as it were. You know, true in their eyes. So in this in integral ecology, in the footnotes, it says that this is reflective of the future tense. Now, why I think this correlates is that in a lot of these mythologies, the focus is on, the primary intent is in what will come, the kingdom of heaven, or going to a greater paradise. So when you're in sort of the great mother cultures of the deep past, there's kind of a feminine quality. There's not really much of a transcendent quality. The great mother is sort of Earth. And so it has this kind of present experience that's kind of holding that. But I think it's very subjective in that sense. But with amber, you're curbing your impulses to go to some other greater world in the future. So I think that connects both to a movement up and a movement to intersubjectivity. Although all of these are so present, we're probably enmeshed in a 12-dimensional matrix. We just don't have a clue of so much of it. But this piece, I think we're starting to get aware of, so that your focus is in intersubjectivity. Subjectivity is still ever present, and same with what I'll talk about in a minute, objectivity, interobjectivity. With the movement to orange, or rational thinking, there's the realization that you can analyze the past. And so there's this past tense focus. You're digging up the bones of the past, being an archaeologist and such. But really what it means is to have sort of axiomatic or foundational gridworks from which these scientists pull from. But they're established in the past, typically. So it's, these group of people that are considered the experts, or the ones to be trusted, and then you pull from that data, and then you create you can be that too by analyzing it, but you're often pulling from, frameworks and mathematical calculations that were created by people long dead. With postmodernism, there's a move, I believe, into interobjectivity, where you get this kind of Gaia move again, and it has again sort of a feminine quality to some extent. And in this integral ecology, the argument is that it's present, not present continuous. So I am, I be, and that's why I think in the 60s you get a big movement to meditation, contemplation. There's a return to some extent to the first person awareness. But it often has gone, and it's understandable, but because you want to kind of you've moved beyond the understanding that you need to just reflect on the past, but it often just undermines it altogether. But what I'm arguing for here is that this move is actually a transition into what will become the whole new paradigm of interobjectivity. So that human, what we know as human, has always been third density, as I was saying earlier, sort of. That's where we're coming from. With the theory of relativity and so forth, you see Einstein sort of pioneering the groundwork from which this new sort of whole new, vastly new paradigm will come. But it was still sort of interpreted from the framework of what you might call third density. This transition would be to fourth density, where you still have sort of the rules laid down of third density, but you're not fully bound to them. There's new openings. So what I'm thinking of is that this green consciousness, postmodern consciousness, is actually a transitionary stage, because it's still the end of the old system. And the new one will come about again starting at green. And I think this was actually a pattern, like when you get to the yugas, which I've only recently taken somewhat serious. The yugas, argue that there's these 4 and 4 patterns, and they repeat, I think, every 10,000 years. But I'm thinking that was just one cycle, and it actually took much, much longer before, because we now have more of an understanding of evolution, and maybe that's condensing. Might refresh again or something in the 4th density, but so that in the past we actually went through a cycle of subjectivity, objectivity, what you might call, and then that went from subjectivity to intersubjectivity to objectivity, and then you had a new cycle. This is within the human lifespan, and that went from, if it was focused in intersubjectivity, but we were capable of objectivity, but it started again, subjectivity, intersubjectivity, objectivity. And then, again, once more, the cycle would repeat. Although the yugas have 4, so I'm not, I'm playing with this a little bit. That might just be total bullshit. But some of this, I think, like, it's fitting. It's fitting together. Time's almost up, so I have to kind of close it here. It's fitting together, but there's gaps. Absolutely. But it's fun. Play, dance, sing, do your jazz hands, pistachio.